Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Sanhedrin Daf Ayin Zayin. Not such a big blot. However, we are starting halfway down on Ayin Vav Amud Beis. We have already learned about Skila and Sreifa, and now we're going to be speaking about Hereg, which is killing, one of the three or one of the four capital punishments. The Mishnah in Ayin Vav Amud Beis reads as follows: Ve'elu heinan Hereg, and these are the people who get killed. Harotzeach, those who kill get Hereg. Ve'anshe ir hanidachas, as well as people who live in an ir hanidachas, a city that has been paskined on it that it should be put to death. Just to remind you, we did learn a couple of blot ago that there are those who hold that an ir hanidachas has never happened, because even if there's one mezuzah, the Gemara said, even if there's one mezuzah, then you can't burn a mezuzah, which means you can't burn the whole place down. So it could be that it never happened. The Mishnah could. What?
At an almost calmer level.
Yeah, but no, it's true on the crime that happened, but you don't get to do an ancillary violation of halacha in the process.
No, I'm saying, why is it at a lower level?
Oh, I don't know. You have to see in the Gemara. I don't know the answer to that question. Good point. Says the Gemara, what kind of rotzeach are we talking about? So a rotzeach shehika esre'ehu be'even o bebarzel. If somebody kills someone with a stone or with metal, or the kavash alav l'socha mayim, or you hold someone down under the water, o l'socha or you hold someone in fire, ve'eno yachol la'alos misham umeis, and the way you're holding them, they're not able to get out of the water or the fire, respectively, and they die. The halacha is chayev because you directly led to their death. As we'll soon see, there is going to be a theme that if you are not directly the cause, then you will not be liable for having killed them, even though you were involved in their death to some degree. Here's a great example. Let's say I push someone into water or into fire, and really he was able to get out of that predicament. He just didn't. Then umes, and he dies, then pater. So when we say that someone is chayiv misa to the point of getting the massive capital punishment of hereg, it has to be that you were the murderer. Not that you played a role in the murder, but you were the murderer. So if I push someone into the water and you hold them under the water, I am completely not liable and you are completely liable. There's no halfsies. You're either fully guilty or you're not. Shisa boas hakelev, shisa boas hanachash. If I tell my dog, go sick him, and then the dog kills a person, so then you're pater. Same with a snake. However, hishich boas hanachash. If I directly take a snake and put his teeth on you to bite you, that's different. If then a person dies, then that's a machlokas tanaim. Rabbi Yehuda is mechayev. Rabbi Yehuda says too much. Dayenu, it's too much. You know, like the snake venom, where they put a piece of rubber or over a cloth, and then they take the teeth and they press the head of the snake in there, and it sticks its fangs into the cloth, and then it spits out all of its venom, which is used for medicinal purposes or whatever or poison, depending on how you're using them. So Rabbi Yehuda held that was too much. V'chacham and Pochen, they said not enough. Still not enough. Not every snake is venomous. Not every venomous is deadly. Not every venom is deadly. So first, the Gemara is bothered by something as follows. Amar Shmuel, mipnei ma lo ne'emra yad bebarzel. We should have seen the language of yad by Barzel. Why should we have seen the language of yad by Barzel? Thank God for Rashi. Rashi, 2 lines before the wide lines in the Rashi's Dibur Hamaschil. Lo ne'emar yad bebarzel. Kamash ne'emar. The pasuk says be'even yad bekli eitz yad. When we talk about a stone or when we talk about wood, we have the word yad. Mashma, says Rashi, sheyesh ba melo achiza de ba'inan shiura. You have to be able to grab onto the handle in order to have the shear in order to kill. Aval barzel ksiv v'im bichli barzel hiko. But Rashi points out that by the word barzel, there is no use of the word yad. So if the psukim show a difference where we see that by barzel there's no yad, but by Evan there is yad, why in the Mishnah does it not say yad by Evan? That's the Gemara's question. Yad bebarzel. So says the Gemara, barzel memis kolshu. I didn't know how long that was going to last. I didn't know. I didn't know how long that was going to last. So says the Gemara, why doesn't it say yad by barzel? Why do the psukim say yad by Evan but not by barzel? Because barzel memis bekolshu. I do brisim with a tiny little scalpel. The whole scalpel is an inch and a half. It's tiny, and it can kill, right? You cut you cut an artery. It's just the conversation is short, right? If I take a rock and I throw it at an artery, okay, that's not going to kill anybody. So when you're dealing with metal, metal is able to cause more damage with a lesser amount. And Tanya Namihachi, it doesn't mean that rocks can't kill. It just means that a tiny amount of metal can kill. So again, I have this tiny scalpel, If God forbid, if a person were to cut an artery, a massive vein, you got 30 seconds, that compared to a large rock that's 100 times the size, the scalpel's a nothing. It weighs 3 grams, nothing, And Tanya Namihachi, the Brisa writes similarly. Rabbi Omer, Galu v'yadua lifnei mishamar v'haya olam. Rabbi says it is revealed to the one who said that the world should be. Shabarzel memis bekolshu. You don't need a lot of metal to kill somebody. Lefichach, a shiv in the prisons, it's nothing. It's the end of your toothbrush, sharpened, easy. Lefichach, lo nitna Torah bo shiur. There is no shiur when it comes to barzel. That's why when we refer to rotzech in our Mishnah by an even or by barzel, we don't use the word yad by barzel. The word yad in the psukim only applies by even. Interestingly, against my example, this says only if you are barze mivraz. We've had this language before, which is that you stab with the knife. It's actually not as true. I mean, our blades now are so remarkably sharp that a person could cut and they probably may not even feel the first incision with a very, very sharp blade. So it says the Gemara, the assumption is that because you can stab and get into the flesh that way, you can get into the body with a very, very small blade, that is what is considered to be dangerous. I wonder.
Flesh is one of those few words you can understand.
Few words you can understand? I was wondering what that was. I actually thought it was the word punch.
That was punched. Punched. Maybe it's from puncture. Maybe.
Yeah, it says no cave, the Hagos V'Tzionu, so it's puncture.
Puncture.
It's a puncture. So puncture must be from an old French word. Dad, do you know how to say puncture in French?
No.
Dad, I don't believe you. Your humility is endearing. Anyways, that's what the Gemara says.
That's the ability of a small person.
Although I would argue that brissim are done with flint stones. Correct.
Right.
But that was the example I gave, which is a bad example relative to the language of the Mivraz Baris, but that if you slice, you can kill just as quickly.
I got the French word for puncture for you. In English, we would say perforation. In French is perforation.
But that's probably modern and not old French. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder. Okay, let's continue. We get the point. The point is that metal has a one-up over stone, to some degree, I guess. What?
No pun intended with that one.
Sorry.
The point.
Oh no, I didn't know. I didn't even know which part of my sentence you were referring to. Don't give me so much credit. It's been a long day. It's just an accident. You know you're in trouble when your humor is an accident and you don't know what happened. Says the Gemara, if a person holds down someone in the water, Reisha Revusa Kamash Milan. The first example is a Revusa, there's a Chiddush. The Seifa Revusa Kamash Milan. And the Seifa too, there's something that's Mechudash. Reisha Revusa Kamash Milan, that Afal Gav Delav Ihudachvo. I may be the one who held the guy under the water, but you pushed him in. No. The guy who holds him under the water is the one who's chayv. That's a Chiddush, that the guy who pushed him in is not chayv. What do we have by Hilchos Shabbos? Echad maybe esa eitzim, echad maybe esa eish. Everybody's chayav, but over here we don't say that by miso, and it's an interesting chiluk. I didn't look this up. I'm just saying it's just an interesting chiluk. Why is it that when it comes to Hilchos Shabbos, that everybody piecemeal we say everybody's chayav, but over here we don't say that. Over here we say the guy who pushes him into the water is innocent. It's not innocent, but he's not a murderer. It just means he doesn't get hereg. Maybe there's an element of isser that he did, but he doesn't get hereg.
Does it make a difference if the guy knows how to swim or not? Because then
he has to be we'll see soon. He has to have an avenue to exit. He does have to have an avenue. And your das, let's say someone threw me into the water. I'm a good swimmer. Somebody threw me into the water. that if you throw a baby into the water, it's a death sentence, right? So like you have to know. And what happens if he thinks I know how to swim and he was wrong? So then he didn't have the kavanah to kill. He would not get herek. Right. So then it would depend on. So like nowadays, there are people who don't know how to swim, but everyone can do the doggy paddle for long enough to scream out that you need help. I mean, most adults, Okay, that was chiddush number one, is that the guy who pushed in would be putter, but the guy who held him under would be chayv. And sefer revusa kamash malan. What about the case? What about the other case that afal gav the dachvo, he pushed him in kevin diachol la'alos mishamu meis putter. In the sefer where I pushed him in and he could have gotten out on his own, he would have been putter, since he was able to get out. And even though he died, but he didn't get out because I don't know, he's depressed and he decided to stay on his own. I have no idea. But for whatever reason, he didn't get out. You are going to be putter in that case because he had a way out. Kavash minalan. From where do we know that a person is going to be chai for holding someone under the water or in a fire? I'm surprised we're asking the question. Anybody else? Sounds like murder to me. I don't know. So it's weird.
Somewhat indirect.
Why? I'm holding someone underwater. They need oxygen. I restricted their oxygen.
Not the same as.
But you're not, right, but you're not the one actually
Right, the water is
causing
killing
the
him.
death. The water is
The water
causing
is
the death, the
killing.
fire is causing the death,
It causes a tough word to use,
Mhm.
but, right? But that's
You're,
right.
you're facilitating the
water's
death.
killing
Yeah.
him.
Right, but
You're definitely facilitating.
the actual murder weapon
In the water,
the water, the fire, you're
That's
not,
how I would
you're not.
assume.
Yeah, that's a proper distinction. That's a proper distinction. We'll see some of this play out over the next block because most of the rest of the Gemara for today, I think there's 10 cases ahead of us, or this is the second case now, of cases of murder and whether or not there's liability. So it says the Gemara, Kavash minal, and I held someone underwater. How do we know that that person is chayav? Amar Shmuel, Amar Kra, O be'eva. So this pasuk is by Midbar, O ve'eva hikahu biyado, with anger, he hit him with his hand, v'yamos, and you killed him. The pasuk says, Mos yumas hamakeh rotzeachu. All right, so it says the Gemara, L'rabos es hametzamsem. This is to include, Obe'eva is to include someone who is mitzamsem, someone who holds someone. Right, so I'm holding this person in a place where something secondary kills them, like you were pointing out, Tex. I hold you in a place. What I did, my holding is not a murderous act, but I held you in a way that you died. So then we say you're chayiv in that case. So I think your distinction is correct. Mitzamtzem is not an act of retzach. I'm just holding you in place. So let's say that I were to give someone a big hug. Above water, giving them a big hug is givaldic. Below water, giving them a big hug is not givaldic. So the same exact act, and I'm really hearing your distinction more and more, the same exact act could yield two different results in two different circumstances. Cutting off someone's head doesn't have two circumstances. So that's why the Gemara makes this point. And Hahu Gabra, there was a man, he held someone, he restricted someone into the sun all day, and the man died. Ravina Mechayev, Ravacha Barav Patar. Machlokes Amuraim, whether or not you're chayiv for holding someone in the sun. Ravina Mechayev, because of a sophisticated Kal V'chomer. Don't worry, it's not like the Kal V'chomers of yesterday and the day before, which were brutally difficult Gemaras. This is much easier. Umar Rotzeach, Shelo Asa Bo Shogeg Kimezi. We know by a Rotzeach, if he kills B'Shogeg, what does he do? He goes to Galus. But if he kills B'Mezid, he doesn't go to Galus, he's a Rotzeach, he gets killed. And V'Ones Kiratzon, in such a case, Ones is not like Ratzon. And in such a case, Chia Boas HaMetzamsem. In the case of Retzach, where Shogeg and Mezid are different, we say that you're Chayav for Metzamsem, for holding someone down. Then the world of Nezikin, turning to the top of Ayin Zayin Amid Aleph, then the world of Nezikin, Sha'asaba and Shogeg Kimezid V'Ones Kiratzon. In such a scenario where Shogeg and Mezid are the same, because what do we say by Nezikin? We say that Adam is mu'ad la'olam. Even when you're sleeping, you're going to be chayav for your actions. Eino din shechayev bahen esametzamsem. Pasha that it should be the case. So what happened over here? I did something. The mitzamsem of the chiyusa de chavrei. I think I made a mistake. The chiyusa de chavrei is an animal, no? It has to be a case of nizikin. It's not the person himself. So the animal died. So when he said kal v'chomer by the nizakin, that you killed this person. Einu din shechai b'enes hamitzamtzim. And why does Rav Acha say that you're pater? Rav Acha bar Rav poter, because Amar Masharshi, my time of de'avua de'aba pater, the poter. Why did he say that? Because Amar Kram, Mos Yumas Hamaker Rotzechu, Berotzechu dechayav lan mitzamtzim, Benizakin lo chayav lan mitzamtzim. So that's the difference. If I were to drown a cat, granted that's a sign for being a serial killer, I agree, but in and of itself, you are not chayav. Why? Because in Nizakin, mitzamtzim doesn't apply. In Nizakin, your damage has to be more direct. So, yeah, maybe. Could be a grama. Yeah, that's what Rashi says. Third line of Rashi, the Brahmascha Ravacha Poter, the grama be'almahu, the shim shakatle. So therefore, if I mean, holding it under the water feels different than keeping it outside. But we've heard stories in the polar vortex winters where dogs have frozen to death outside because of careless owners. So that's this case. That's mitzamtzim. You've restricted them to a place where they can't survive. And then they die. So you're a horrible person, I guess, but you're not going to be chayav for the nezikin of the damages. Next case, 6 lines.
It seems like it goes back to that whole idea of rotzeach, which is a physical action that directly causes.
Right.
Right? As
But by
opposed to going into
nezikin,
the water where the water drowns them.
It's like,
so to
it's
speak.
even like 1 degree of separation.
That's what it sounds like, and from the pasuk rotzeach, I guess.
but
Because you clearly
by
caused them to die by.
but we're saying
You know, it's on.
we're saying that by retzach we have an idea of mitzamtzim. We're saying that by nezikin we don't.
Mhm.
So what we're saying is that by retzach we have regular murder.
Yeah.
We have regular murder, and then we have mitzamtzim. 1 degree 1 degree worse, 1 degree less bad. But when it comes to nezikin, it's not that way. By nezikin, we're saying there's no din of mitzamtzim by nezikin. It's considered a grama. So whereas by murder, we still consider you a murderer for mitzamtzim, by nezikin, at least according to Ravacha, he holds that's not considered, there is no mitzamtzim by nezikin, which is interesting.
So kula is that there's not even a kula grama.
By murder. So that's a chiddush in the pasuk. That's when it's at. Now we're understanding much more deeply. Why did the pasuk have to go out of its way to explain kavash? Why I held the guy underwater? So you explained it perfectly because the water killed him. But that was the chiddush. So now we know that mitzamtzim means that you're going to be chayav misa if there was no other avenue for the person to get out.
When he says putter, he means putter from the Zika. And the bottom of them is he says putter. What's he putter from?
It's patur from paying nezikin. Why are you saying what's the
I
problem?
thought it was high misa or not.
But that case of hahu gavra de mitzamtzim al chiyusa de chavrei, I restricted the animal of my friend. That's a din in nezikin. It's not a din in retzach. I corrected myself because I initially translated that incorrectly. I learned it incorrectly. But in that case, we're talking about an animal. We can't be talking about retzach. When I kill an animal, there is no retzach. So let's just review because I made that error. When we're talking about human beings, you can kill in a murderous way and you can kill in a slightly indirect way. And if I hold a person underwater, I'm going to be chayav misa, just like I would be for cutting his head off. I'm chayav misa. If I were to restrict someone, but they had a way out, so then I'm not chayav misa. Still a bad person, just not chayav misa. And by animals, that's a machlokas amoraim if we apply mitzamtzim to the world of nezikin, not just animals, any damage. If you have a special thing that gets ruined in the sun, and I sit there and I hold it in the sun like this. So do we say mitzamtzim applies by nezikin, yes or no? So that's a machlokas amoraim. Clear? We're good? Mm-hmm. Next case, Amar Rava, kifaso umeis bera'av pater. He's just strike a little too close to home. If these are, we have a case scenario where someone was bound up and they died from starvation. Halacha is pater. Why? So take a look at Rashi, 5th line, first of the shorter lines. Dibra maschel kvaso meis berav, dibeshasha kvaso ein kan dvar hariga. The moment that you tied him up and chained him up and shackled him up, he wasn't starving. And you chained him up today. The chains don't kill him. What killed him is that he has no food. It takes 5 days for him to die, whatever the time frame is. A very important language of Rashi. If the death is mizuman, I put you into a shark tank with sharks, I am a murderer. I put you into a shark tank where there are no sharks and the sharks come later, I'm chayiv. I'm pater. That's what this idea is. And similarly, v'amarava kvaso bichama umes bitzina umes. If I put the person in the hot weather and he dies from the hot weather, not when it's 60, I put him out there when it's 110 and I leave him there, or when it's -20 and I leave him there, then I'm chayiv. Sof chama lavo, sof tzina lavo. If I put him there and the sun will only come up later, or it will become cold later, then pater. V'amarava kvaso lifnei ari pater. If I put a person in front of a lion, I tie him there in front of a lion, pater. Rashi, because why would that be? Rashi says, Dibra masal kvaso lifnei ari pater, halfway down. Dinami lo haya kafus, lo haya yachol hatil atzma min ha'ari. The lion would have killed you, no matter what. Whether or not you're held up, he's faster than you, he will tear you to shreds. Continues the Gemara, lifnei yitushen. However, if I put a person in front of mosquitoes that are filled with West Nile virus, and I know it, so then chayiv. That's an unbelievable zach. It's crazy. You hear the distinction. If I tie you up in front of a lion, I'm pater. If I tie you up in front of mosquitoes and you die, then I'm chayiv. Rav Ashi Omar afilu lifnei yitushin nami pater hani azle v'hani asu. Lav dafka that the one that I put you in front of is the one that actually killed you, because they fly in throngs. There's tens of thousands of them, and who knows? This
Not necessarily.
I don't think this actually means mosquitoes. I think it means a deadly bug.
But this is still a case of being restricted. You're kind of keeping the person there.
You're keeping them there, but the reason why is because the mosquito that killed you was not Mizuman. It was a different mosquito that killed you. If we knew it was,
That
there's
mosquito.
yeah. If we knew,
Different than the nachash. You're holding the nachash.
that's a machlok. The nachash that I bite into your arm,
Right.
that's a machlok as to I'm a right. Tanoim?
But here there's no focus.
What?
But here there's no focus. You're putting him in front of the mosquito.
Well, so then it's a
Your pet
raya.
mosquito.
So then it's a raya for one side of the machlokas. It is. It's a beautiful raya. Absolutely. Itmar. Kipa alav gigis upara alav ma'aziva. I turn a barrel over you, oxygen suppression. I'm keeping it away from you. Or para alav ma'aziva. Or I undo your roof in horrible, dangerous weather. Rava v'ribzera. Charamar chayav v'charamar pater. This is a machlokas between the two. Tistayim, it's logical to conclude, de Rava hu de Amar pater, that Rava was the one who said that you are pater in such a case. De Amar Rava kvaso meis bara'av pater. Rava, a few lines ago, said that if I tie somebody up and he dies from a secondary issue of famine, he didn't die because I tied him up. He died because there was famine, pater. So that sounds like Rava l'shitaso. So Rava must have been the one that over here by kafa alav gigis upara alav ma'aziva, that you're pater. Says the Gemara, Adarabba, Tistayim de Reb Zeruhu de Amar Pater. I could argue the exact opposite. What is the precedence that we see for Reb Zera to hold that you'd be pater in a case that's similar to Kafa Alav Gigis? De Amar Reb Zera, 5 lines from the bottom of the page. Haiman, de Aile lechavre, bevesa de shisha. I put someone in a marble box, in a house that's all marble. Ve'adlik le shraga umeschayv. And I light up a candle in order to deprive the room of oxygen, and then in turn, that person dies. When I was in YU, we had a very heartless biology teacher. And one of the things they would do to kill mice so that we could dissect them like punk right away when they died is put them in a sealed jar. And there was a valve on the side, and they would suck all the oxygen out of that thing. And I'm just saying, I don't work for PETA. It was very hard to watch. It felt so, I don't know. I'm not a serial killer, so maybe she was. I don't know. But anyways, that's what's happening over here. If I know that there's very little oxygen in the room and I light a match or whatever, many matches in order to deplete the room from oxygen, then I'm a murderer. It says the Gemara, look at this diuk. Taima de adlik le shraga. The reason why I'm chayiv is because I lit that match to consume whatever oxygen was there. Halo adlik le shraga. But had I not lit a match, what would have happened? Lo, I would not have been chayiv. which means that Reb Zera holds that you're putter in this case of putting him in the marble box, which is not dissimilar to the case of Kafa Alav Gigis and Par Alav Ma'aziba. So now we don't really know who it is. Is it really that the lenient case of putter was Rava, like the precedents we had at the top of the page of Kfasa Umes Rav? Or no, is it really the case of Reb Zera, where Reb Zera would hold in a case of Aile Lechavre Bevesa Deshisha that you would have been putter without a candle? So Amri says the Gemara, Hasam, below Shraga lo maschil hebla b'shaite. Over there in the room that was made out of marble, there's nothing to talk about if you don't light a match. The case is too unique. But Hacha, in regards to the barrel, below Shraga nami, maschil habla b'shaite. You put someone in a very confined space without a lot of oxygen, you're already beginning their death. The cases are really not comparable. So we can't really bring a raya, says the Gemara, from the case of Reb Zera. Siman, Sulam Tris Simanin Bekosal. Ayin Zayin Amud Beis at the second line, now the third line. Amar Rava Duchafo Labor. I push someone into a pit. V'sulam Babor, but there's a way for him to get out. Uba Acher V'silko. So I'm Ruvain. I push Chaim down into the pit, and Shimon takes away the ladder, and adds in Rava Ave'afilu Hu Kadam V'silko Potter. Even if I who pushed you into the pit, if I then remove the ladder, Potter. Why? De beidna deshadye yacholalosu. While you were falling, when I pushed you, there was a ladder there. So that means that even though you didn't land until the ladder was removed, but the nuance of halacha states that because b'shas maisa, if the flow of events is I push you, you're now falling, there's a ladder, and I pick it up just enough that you can't after I push you. But b'shas maisa, when I pushed you, at that moment there was a ladder. Now, we're all bothered, obviously, by the fact that, yes, but I can't use the ladder now, right? But halacha makes that distinction, is that because when I pushed you, there was no ladder there, but there was a ladder there, then you are going to be potter.
Two different, the matzav is different. That's the, I mean.
Are you asking or answering?
That the matzav is different. The first matzav is when I pushed you in, and the second matzav is now there's no ladder, but one,
But I could argue that my flow of events were sequential, and that 1-2 punch led to your murder, and you're chayiv herek.
Question, you're a murderer.
You're a murderer.
Might not be chayiv misa.
But just this kind of,
question.
you might not be chayiv capital
Might not be
punishment.
chayiv capital punishment for it, but. I don't
no,
know. Anybody
nobody's giving him the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, that's,
We've had a lot of funny people win the
Right,
Nobel
okay,
Peace
okay,
Prize.
fine. Other than proper saying, it's okay, you're not chayiv misa, but for that, they don't give you mafta yom.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Nevertheless, from Misa itself, one would be pater. And similarly, and this is 5 lines down, maybe 6 lines down, from Rava, Zarak bochetz, I shoot an arrow, vitris biyado, and you're holding a protective shield at the moment that I let go of the bow. Uva acher unatalo, now the arrow is in flight, and someone takes away your shield. Ve'afilu hu kadam unatalo, or I myself magically am fast enough to remove. This is really, it's very good. Or I shot the arrow up in the air, whatever. We'll actually discuss the case of up in the air. That's not a good example. So then the halacha is pater. Mifsak piske gire. At the moment that arrow was let go from the bow, what would have happened in that one moment if the bullet would have gotten there? So the shield would have stopped it. Somebody removed the tree, somebody removed the shield after. Okay, but that's after the bow was released. So the halacha is your putter from hereg, your putter from being a rotzeach. V'amar Rava, zarak bochetz bisam manin biado. Somebody shot you with an arrow that was poisoned, a poison-tipped arrow. But v'samanin biado, you had the antidote. Uba acher upizran, and someone takes your antidote and spills it all over the ground. So now you don't have an antidote anymore. Ve'afilu hu kadam upizran. Even if I shot the arrow, my poison-tipped arrow, and then I spilled the antidote that you were holding, pater, at the time that the arrow was shot, you were able to heal yourself. Again, there's an impracticality here. You can't save your life anymore. You're done. There's nothing you're going to do. Your death is a foregone conclusion. But nevertheless, halacha states that you are patur because at the very moment that you did your action of pushing or pushing the person into a pit or pulling the ladder, when you did your first action, there was, in theory, a way to get out. Amar Rav Ashi hilkach afilu simanim b'shuk. Even if someone shot you with a poison-tipped arrow, but there were medications accessible to you at CVS, so then the halacha would be that you are completely patur. So let's talk about an example. L'maisa. A person has a horrible tree nut allergy, anaphylactic. They will die. But someone in the crowd has an EpiPen. And you die. Are you a rotzeach? So according to this Gemara, if anyone has an EpiPen on them, you're not a rotzeach. Because you had a way to get healed. Again, like you said, no maftir yona, but you're patur.
Even if the Rotzeach didn't know that there was somebody in the crowd with it?
And we would have to teach the words afilu someone in bashuk. Maybe according to that logic, he should have known. Even if we only found it after the guy did the action, he'd be patur. That's what Rashi says. So that's very interesting. We're really, we have this line in regards to our speech of Palgin and Dibura. Here we're being Palgin and Maisa. We're like really looking under a microscope at the action that you did. So the act of pushing someone into a pit is retzach. It's not really retzach. The act of pushing, right? You can do the same exact action in one case. In one case, you're giving someone
Whether or not there's a ladder there, which
there's
has nothing to do with.
there's context, right? So that the initial maisa that you do, it's only a 6-foot hole or it's a 10-foot hole. But and I did a maisa that's not a murderous maisa. And there's a ladder. The ladder moved. So we're just looking through the keyhole at this narrow sliver in time. When you pushed that guy into the fire, whatever you did, was there a way for him to survive? If the answer is yes, you're patur. Even though it's impossible to save him if you also take the ladder, because that's a separate maisa. And you want to say that there's retzach for pulling the ladder? Since when is a maisa retzach pulling a ladder? It's too far removed. It's not even touching the person. Maybe we can discuss pushing the guy in. Sometimes I push my kids into the pool jokingly. I've done it many times. That's not a maisa retzach. Okay, but it could be if you push him into a pit with no ladder. If there was no ladder, your maisa is a maisa retzach. If there is a ladder, then your maisa is not a maisa retzach. Either going to die because you also took out the ladder, but it's too far removed to say that it's not your classical case of murder. Okay, next. Amar le Ravacha berei de Rava le Ravashi nizdamnu lo samanim mahu. Let's say there weren't any. All of a sudden he found some. Amar le harei yatsa mi bezdin zakai. It's an unbelievable thing. The guy is totally fine. He's going to be, he'll be fine. V'amar Rava, zorak tzuror bakosel. A person throws a rock at a wall, v'chazra la'achore, and it bounces off the wall, v'harga. The halacha is chayev. That's interesting. Well, it has to be your intention, right? So that's what Rashi says over here, a third of the way down. Tzuror bakosel. Rashi says, v'niskaven laharog es chavero. V'zarak tzuror, v'hika bakosel, bakoach. V'chazra mikocho la'achore, v'harga, chayev, dehanami kochohu. So the chiddush of this case is that even though you bounced it off a wall, it's still considered your koach. So this was your maisa. What?
One action.
Right. I could see why you'd argue it isn't one action, because I threw this way and it killed going that way, right? I could see. Not a springboard. Just
So shooting an arrow and straight up in the air, and then gravity brings it back down.
We're going to talk about that case in a minute. Very good. Very good. So here Rava says if it's he doesn't say the intention part, but Rashi adds that. If it is your intention to kill someone by bouncing something off a wall, then you're successful. First of all, you have very good aim. And second of all, you're chayav. The Tanatuna, we have this also quoted in a brisa, a third of the way down on Ayin Zayin Amud Beis. Kigon elu hamasachkin bakadur shahargo. They used to play a game like this. I guess it would be similar.
Pinners.
Pinners. Yeah, this game was a little
Rashi
different.
Literally describes pinner.
It's a little different because they'd bounce it off the wall. When they'd catch it, they'd whip it directly at the person as part of the game. It's a little different. I don't know what kind of pinners you guys played. When I was a kid. Yeah. Remind me not to play sports with you, okay?
There's a game like that, it's called Highline, where the ball goes at like 180 miles an hour and it's solid.
Yikes. It's dangerous.
Get hit in the head, you're done.
You're done. That's so here it says the Brisa Vitana Tuna Kagon Elam Mesachkin Bekador Shahargo B'mezid Nehergen. If I intentionally tried to kill someone and I was successful, then I get hereg. B'shogeg, if I'm just playing the game and unfortunately somebody died, then Golan. Obviously, that's killing the shogeg, and under the right parameters, then the person would go to an ir mikla. Says the Gemara, thank you very much. I know that. B'shogeg Golan pshita. Says the Gemara, you're right. I'm not coming to teach you that that b'shogeg is Golan. Everybody knows b'shogeg is Golan, but the chiddush is a little bit bigger. That b'mezid nehergen istrichle. That the chiddush is in the case of mezid, that if I intentionally threw something off the wall and it killed someone, that I'd be chayiv. Ma'udatema hasra safek hi. I might have thought that even if I warned you and then you threw it off the wall and you killed a third person, that the hasra that I gave you is hasra safek because mi yemar dehadra, who says you have such good aim, who says that it's going to bounce back the way that you thought it would. The ball could hit the wall and there's a little crack in the wall, a little divot, and then it shoots in a totally different direction. We've all seen that happen. Says the Gemara, Kamash Malan. If your intention is to kill and you killed, you're done. Which means, seemingly, even if you weren't 100% sure that you were going to successfully throw it the perfect way, you're still chayiv, which is a chiddush. But that does go against what we learned earlier, right? Tani Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arava. Tani Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arava. He was from the west. He was Israeli. And he said it, Kamei de Rabbi Abo, Kegon Elam Mesachkin Bekador Shahargo. This is like people who play basketball or some sport of some kind that ends up killing people. Toch Arba Amos Pater. If it kills someone within the Daled Amos of the wall, you are Pater. And Chutz Arba Amos Chayin. If you killed someone outside of the Daled Amos, so it bounces off the wall 6 Amos and kills someone, then you're Chayiv. Rashi, Dibra Maschel Kagon El Mesachkin Bekadosh Ha'agr Toch Daled Amos P'turin. Im Haya Hamuka, the person who was hit and killed. Omed Besoch Arba Amos Shel Kosel, Velo he speak Alachzor Daled Amos. He didn't have the opportunity to move back far enough. Ad Shemetza'aso V'haragto, Pater Hazorek Migalus. This isn't even a shogeg. You're very far removed. You're too close to the wall. That's not the way.
I'm looking for Rashi to say that, but I don't really, you know what I'm saying? That's exactly what I assume. Like, what were you doing there? You know, the ball's coming off the wall. Speak a locks or down.
Yeah.
He was supposed to run away, but didn't.
Until the ball found him. The haragto. Pater hazorek migal.
I guess because he shouldn't have been so close, right?
I don't know.
The assumption is it needs more.
The Gemara is going to ask Kechidami because we have to figure out the case here. But yeah, just Bepashtas, it's a difficult Gemara time. Who cares what the distance you are from the wall? If my intention was to kill that person and I succeeded, no, you can't be chayiv.
You're only chayiv goals.
Oh, chayiv goals. Correct. What?
Right.
That's the putter. The putter here.
That must be amazing. It must be amazing showing a case, which means there must be intent, etc. Otherwise, there never be.
Well, we agree. There's always intent by murder, right? Because we have a distinction between mazid and shogeg. This is less than putter. This is less than putter. This is 0.
But if
he's within Dalet Amos, it's 0. If he's outside of Dalet Amos, then I'm considered a shogeg and I go to galus. Right. Now we're not talking about chayiv, hereg, and putter. That's not what we're talking about. Now we've dropped everything a notch. This is all shogeg. But chutz Dalet Amos, you're going to be chayiv, meaning you're going to have to go into galus. Amar le Ravina le Ravashi hechidami. Either kanichale. If I was happy with what happened, that's what I wanted to happen. Afilu purtanami, even less would be fine. If that's what I wanted to happen, then lechayiv galus. Rashi, Rashi says afilu portanami. Let's just go back one Rashi. Idenicha leisha tachzor yoser. I would have wanted it to go further than afilu portanami lechayv galus harag b'shogeg b'taim aleka lemiftere. He has no reason to be pater. He should be chayiv shogeg. V'ilo nichale, continuing in Rashi shetachzor kol kach afilu tuvanami yoser midal ramos li pater delonis kaima machshavto. Manavshach, he should be pater from galus. So says the Gemara, Amarle, Stam misachkin bikadur, kama da'ailitfe menach naichale. He wants it to bounce further off the wall. So that's why there's a difference. So because I wanted it to be further off the wall, but my ratzon means that anything within Dalet Amos is going to be completely pater. I didn't even intend for that. And if it goes further and kills someone, I'm going to be chayiv.
Any type of
What?
speed or power.
That's a what if question. We can't. You have to accept the facts on the ground that it was able to kill him even at a further distance.
No,
Like
I'm
you
saying
said,
that
that's.
within Dalet Amos, it didn't have enough, the rebound.
I would have said the opposite. The rebound is sharpest at the.
No, but when you play baseball, the ball you hit the farthest is the one that's thrown the fastest.
Usually true. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We're going to have to stop right here at Lamemra, and what we're going to talk about tomorrow when we begin this sugya, when we continue this sugya, is what's defined as kocho. Right? If I throw something off the wall, is that my koach? We already had one shita that said yes. What if I shoot the arrow up? We just didn't get to it tonight. So is my koach only on the way up, or is gravity considered second, or is that also my koach? All right, we'll stop right here. Wishing you all a beautiful night.